Hello everybody, and this is my 75-gallon green Jade shrimp tank that I just redone a couple months ago. If you guys, some of you guys who remember that video. And the time has come to do a good shrimp culling and take out the ones we don't need. So, but first let's take a closer look at this tank. Take a look at these crypts. They are really starting to fill in. They're getting nice and thick. They're long and spindly when I put them in these current spots. Now they're starting to spread and get real thick. The moss is starting to form great big mounds, and that's what I'm always after. This tank's just been doing so good. There for a while it was hard to find a female that wasn't buried. So now there's lots of little tiny babies, and we're not going to go after the little babies yet unless they're super bad, but there really wasn't that many. This culling was super picky because normally I just throw all my culls in the Skittles tank, but these culls ended up going somewhere else, and we'll talk about that here at the end of the video. As you can see, the tank is looking really good. You can get some good looks at the shrimp here. Nice dark green shrimp. So mainly what we're going to be after here is getting out the ones that are not super dark, because I've always gone after the dark green ones, and that's what this line has always been about. I guess you could call them the painted fire greens instead of, like the painted fire reds, the highest, darkest, most solid green. And this tank is going after the greens, not the reds, obviously. But you can see there's a couple lighter looking ones, and those are the ones we're going after to get out. They're on the sponge filter intake. I'd say there's probably about 300 or 400 shrimp in here right now, and we ended up getting 3 dozen out. So now we're gonna do my trick to get them all gathered up. We're gonna put some algae wafers in, and then we can watch them all gather up, so then we can get a better idea of what we're looking at, so they're not all spread out throughout the tank. Get them all grouped up into one area, and it don't take them long. Here's some hyperlapse. I think this hyperlapse in 1 minute and 11 seconds covers 1 hour and 11 minutes. I did it so every minute was 1 second on the time lapse. We got the super red plecos coming in and out of frame. Long fin super reds, those guys are pretty awesome. But really, I'm super happy with these guys. When I redid the tank, I went through all the shrimp, got out all the ones that were not good, but then when I switched the substrate, because this all used to be pea gravel like it is right there in the middle where the crypts are planted, but since I switched the substrate, I did another video on this tank how switching them over to the substrate, they changed their color. That lightened all the shrimp up, because before they were almost so dark they didn't even look green, but now put them on a dark substrate, you wouldn't think it would lighten them up. You'd think a dark substrate will darken them, but with these greens, the dark substrate made them lighter looking. So then we ended up having a bunch of the ones who were all right before are now too light, and the ones that were too dark before are a beautiful dark solid green. So as always, when you got this many shrimp in a tank, the hardest part is first getting them gathered up, and we get that accomplished with the algae wafers. But then when you get them all grouped up like this and you're trying to catch them out, this ended up taking like over an hour, and then I just went through and pieced together the ones I was successfully catching shrimp, because there was lots of times where I tried to get one, and then 3 or 4 of the ones I wanted to keep in here would escape or get in the net, and then you had to get the bad one or the good ones out so that you only got the ones you're trying to take out left in the net. So this is pretty hard, and yeah, so here we go. But we got a lot of shrimp taking shelter in the moss, and we're trying to always get them out, and that's what the algae wafers are for. And I have noticed the snails are making a comeback in this tank pretty heavily. So whenever I do sell websites off the, whenever I do sell snails off the website, I usually gather them up out of this tank. So trying to get rid of these, thin out these snails, but I still like to have a healthy population of snails, but too many are bad. So you can see most of the ones I'm catching out, like I said a little bit ago, are the lighter ones. Usually the females that I'm calling out are, most of the females are dark green, some of them are lighter green, but the dark green females that I'm pulling out, they have a yellow stripe. They have the racing stripe on there, and this line I try to keep it without the racing stripe. And this is where I'm coming from, where these guys are going. Fellow YouTuber and a good friend of mine, Valley Fish. He's getting into shrimp now. And he don't like the dark greens, but he likes the greens with the yellow stripe and the lighter ones. So me and him, he sends me guppies, and I've been sending him guppies and plants and whatnot. And so I'm catching all these up, and instead of going in my Skittles cull tank, they're gonna go over there to Jeff Valley Fish, and he can play with them. And so they're still pretty good. I mean, I've worked pretty hard on this line, so he'll still have some good shrimp to play with. He'll have a bunch of them to play with. And we're just going through and catching them out. Like trying to coax them out of off the algae wafer so I don't catch it. Like I said, the hardest part is not, oh, there we go. We separated that one and got it. Let's see if we can get another one. Yeah. Like you can see there's one sitting on the net, trying not to catch it. I think it just swam in the net. Got it off. Let's coax another one off the algae wafer. There we go. That looked like a pretty dark one. That one had a yellow stripe on it. And then yeah, there's another dark one that had a yellow stripe. And now that we're done with that, take a look at how much less light ones there are. Now, I'm not saying I got all of them. I never do. But I am liking the looks of this group a lot better. They're already pretty stinking good to begin with. But now these guys are magnificent. I love these green jades. I'd say out of all my lines, these greens are probably the ones I'm most proud of. Because I've worked them really, really hard, and greens are notoriously hard to breed true. And these guys are pretty spot on. And I figured I'd show them off how I pack them up. So we got about a dozen shrimp in each bag. I usually put 10 to 12 shrimp in. You don't want to get too many more than 10, but I usually put 1 or 2 extras in each bag as extras, just in case something happens. One of them might get pinched in the bag during shipping or something unfortunate, you know, sometimes something happens, and I always put some extras in there to cover something like that. Now this isn't that situation, but me and Jeff, we trade stuff and plants and shrimp and guppies all the time. So first I put in a layer of insulation, and I'm starting to make little holes in there for the bags to rest in. So there's insulation between the bags in the box and between the other bags, so we don't want the bags touching each other. So we're going to clear a little space right there, make sure there's insulation between the bags and the side of the box. Looks pretty good. And then we cover it all back up with some more insulation. This insulation isn't the scratchy fiberglass insulation. This is the blow-in cellulose insulation. So it's not got any of the nasty, itchy stuff on it. This is what I've been shipping stuff with for years, and I have very, very good luck with it. And it does really good. I'm going to make sure it's all padded down. Not only does the insulation help keep them warm, but the insulation also keeps them from floating around and getting smashed around in the box. And that's good. We don't want them doing that. Now we got it all nice and padded down. We don't want it too tight, because if you put too much pressure in there, the breather bags can get popped. So you want it nice and loose, but you still want it firm to keep them. It's that middle area. You don't want them scrunched in there real tight, but you want them in there firm enough so that they're not bouncing around in there. And it's still early spring here where I live and where Jeff lives, and we have some cold nights. So we're going to use a heat pack, 72-hour heat pack. On these kind, all you do is take it out of the plastic. As soon as it hits the oxygen, it gets activated. Put that on there. Close up the box. And taper shut. And hopefully Jeff enjoys these light calls from the dark green jades. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. You get to see me cull my green jades and how I pack up a box. So thank you guys for watching. Bye.